Hey onesies, Josh Williams here, and thanks for checking out the One Man Podcast. There's now over 200 episodes and dozens of bonus interviews, all of which are available at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, and many more. And you know what? If you don't have any of those apps, no big deal, because you can listen anytime at onemanpodcast.com. So be sure to subscribe because it's always free and there's a new episode out every Wednesday. And while you're at it, leave a review. It's a great way to help the podcast and it doesn't cost you a thing. Follow One Man Podcast on all the major socials and you'll get bonus content and pictures, fun stuff for yourself. And finally, if you have something that you want read on the show, send it to contact@onemanpodcast.com, because if you send it, I'll read it on an upcoming episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy.
What's up, everybody? This is DJ Damaris.
I'm K. Trevor Wilson.
Hey, it's Krista Allen.
Hi, this is Rick Mercier.
What's up, guys? This is Paul Virzi, and you are listening to the One Man Podcast. Yeah!
My name is Josh Williams, and welcome to the One Man Podcast, episode number 201 for Wednesday, March 17th, 2021. How's it going, onesies? How are you guys doing? How's life treating you? Are you good? You excited? Episode preceding the 200th episode. Lots of conversations, lots of stories on that one. And, I guess the only way I could think of to hook you guys in to come back for this one was that little cliffhanger, right? You get to hear the rest of the Paul Virzi chat this week. In fact, welcome to anyone. Some people, this might be your very first episode stumbling into One Man Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome onesies. I hope everyone's doing great. And I look forward to shooting the shit. Some housekeeping before we get started on the episode. I want to say thank you to all the love we got. We got so many people reaching out, telling me what they thought of the episodes. So many people just, saying, hey, congratulations, posting pictures, all that fun stuff. All very grateful for that. Thank you so much, guys, for taking the time to reach out. Oh, it's so hard to reach off of mic. I got this I'm like, ooh, I usually have a pen that I can cross these things out as I talk about them. And I'm like, oh, I just like those things where someone's trapped and the key is just 2 inches beyond their fingers. And I'm like, I can't lean over and get it without having dead air. Instead, I'll waste 15 seconds explaining the situation. So yeah, I really appreciate all the people who, the people who are receiving their boxes and taking pictures, posting those, people just sending their congratulations on the 200th episode. Super, super grateful. Thank you, everybody who listened to it. Super grateful and enjoy to all the people who have yet to listen to it. It's a long one, and this one we're going to make sure we keep it much, much shorter. This will not be a 3-hour episode. I think the episode 199 was also particularly long as well. I went off on a rant at the end, and Lord knows, I spent an entire day chatting with my young pups in New York. Just, the same ones I was referring to in episode 199, just some conversation about stuff going on. And it's just so funny to look back at who I was when I was their age, going through the same shit and having no idea, what was going on. Oh, and I thought I turned you down, but oh no, that computer's still making noise in the background. It's so funny. Episode 200, the amount of times, even just listening to it, even after editing it, like the amount of email notifications that came in as I was recording, and just at the most inopportune times, I wasn't like, oh, I could just cut that sentence out. Like, no, that was incredibly important contextual sentence for my guest. So I'm like, well, I guess we're just gonna have an email. The amount of times even just editing it while I was listening and I heard bling and I'd go look for an email just because it was audio recorded at the time. Anyways, yeah, thinking back, of course, interruption in the middle of a thought. We almost never got back to it. My pups that I was talking to in New York, just me looking back at who I was at the time, going through the same problems. It's just, hey guys, we're all just trying to figure out life, right? Mine didn't come with an instruction manual. Yours didn't come with an instruction manual. A lot of relationship stuff, chatting with these guys, reflecting on my own and the relationships that I've been in my life. And, the overall thing is to just value yourself. Even Virzi, you won't hear that on this episode because I trimmed out that first part. But as I mentioned, episode 200, I started the episode with, I started the conversation I had with Paul Virzi. And you'll even hear him be like, hey, man, good for you. When you realize your value and da-da-da-da. I don't know how I left that in, but I was listening, oh shit. So I made sure I trimmed that off of this one, but that was just me and him just sort of talking about things and whatnot in life, catching up with my buddy and just a little bit of a kudos. And I was like, yeah, thank you. Again, I didn't mean to leave it in. I didn't know until I was listening to the episode afterwards. I was like, oh shit, I left that in. Well, I'm not going all the way back to cut out that thing. I'll just leave that little kindness from my friend in there. And the funny thing is, I'm going to be having that at the end of this episode. So when you guys are listening to this, it's all going to be seamless. When this is over, I'm trying to do this when I have more energy. I still have to go through and listen to it and still finish cleaning up any little bits there for the episode. So Virzi chat coming up at the end, guys. That'll be the big headline at the end of this episode, is to just listen to my chat with Virzi. Another thing someone brought to my attention was on Spotify. So this podcast is on Spotify, and I've looked at it in the past, but there's big gaps missing. So Spotify, I believe, is one of those platforms where they only keep like a certain amount of your episodes at any given time. At least that's my understanding. But I'm not missing episodes in the sense that like you can see from like 200 to, most recent to like 170 or something. It's not like it's got like my 30 most recent episodes or something. There's like big pockets. It's got like 200, 199, 198, and then it goes from 198 down to like 192. And it's like, okay, where'd all those ones go? And then it goes like 192 to 184. And you're like, okay, where are all these episodes? So I sent emails, and Spotify's podcaster support, garbage. So I had to get a hold of my hosting platform, Podbean. And what Spotify told me, I cross-referenced with Podbean and go, are they right about this? And they're like, yeah, we looked in some of your episodes. Like, so, okay, little tech story. Okay, I'll make it very quickly. And I'm not a techie guy, so keep in mind, every time I get an email from like my host thing or something else saying, oh, your files need to be converted, I'm already like, I got to go do fucking nerd research. And I'm not shaming nerds, it's just techie, nerdy shit that makes no sense to me. Right. So when I first started, like I mentioned this on the exclusive episode in longer form, more information, give you guys the background, but short version is, I record right now on a Zoom H6. It's a professional recorder. I record on the Zoom, and it records the files in .waves. I think anybody who's ever used a computer in the last 20 years is familiar with WAV files. It's high quality, large file waves. It collects the data and does a really good job of taking all the quality. And then what I do, and I started this like about 15 episodes into the podcast, as I put it through an audio sort of, what I do is I edit the intro and the little, intro music right into the podcast. And then I throw a song on at the end. YouTube listeners, you don't have that because copyright laws. So I put all that in, and then I save the episode, and then I throw it through a scrubbing program. So when I save it there, it saves it from WAV to I think it's M4V or whatever it is format. Or AA, I think it's AAC or whatever. I don't know what any of them mean, but it goes from the WAV file that I put into it like an AAC. And then I put it into Auphonic, which is the program that sort of scrubs it. So when I was doing those interviews, sometimes someone would be so quiet on there, and it didn't matter how much I jacked up the audio and the volume, I couldn't get them clear. So Auphonic is something that just cleans up my levels. It cleans up their levels. It balances everything from the movie and the music and the intro and all that stuff, so that everything just sounds good. And then when it's done, it makes it an MP3 for me, and I save that. Well, it didn't always do that. It used to save them as like M4Vs or something like that. And the idea is with Spotify, getting back to the original point, is that older episodes were recorded in M4V because that's what Auphonic spit out to me, and I was like, fine, it works. Podbean's letting me upload it. So no issue. Then all of a sudden, Podbean sent a thing saying that they're only allowing for like MP3s going forward, probably because MP3s are smaller files and they're storing, infinite amounts of people's podcasts and shit. Totally get it. So now, enter 2021 and someone brings the attention to not all my episodes are available on Spotify. Get a hold of Spotify and they say, you have episodes that are M4Vs, then our files don't support that. And I go, that's fine. The old files are M4Vs. I go, I've been doing MP3s for probably the better part of a year now, and I've got episodes as recently as a month ago that are missing. So why are those MP3 files missing? And they, and then they're like, well, they just say, well, they're M4Vs. You need to go into your Podbean and convert them. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I go into Podbean and they're all showing as MP3s, the same files that I uploaded. So I get a hold of Podbean. I go, yo, Spotify's saying this. What's the story with that? They're telling me, by the way, these are like my death by 1,000 cuts. Like when you're like, what does Josh do with his day? Fucking solve this shit, And it's amazing to me that like the little bit of tech knowledge that I have, it's kind of like, yes, I have old files that are M4. Like trying to explain to somebody via email. That's why I hate emails. I hate text messages, because you have to phrase your question or your concern or the information you're giving to someone else in such a way that they can't look at it and go, oh, I don't understand. Like these people, it's like they looked at it real quick and went, oh, he's got some M4Vs in there. Yeah, it's not going to work. Our platform only supports MP3s. That's what they said. And I'm like, yes, that's fine. I don't care that my old M4V files are not in there. What about my recent MP3s? So I asked Podbean. They said, yes, it looks like you have M4V files. I go, motherfuckers, you're telling me the same thing as them. The new files that are not M4Vs are like, and this is back and forth emails, right? The new files are not M4Vs. They are MP3s, just like Spotify said, just like you guys said. Why are those not showing up? Why are the MP3 files not showing up on Spotify? And I'm getting frustrated just thinking about it. You know what I mean? I'm supposed to be the dumb customer. They're supposed to be the ones with the answers. Spotify, after getting that, sends me yes, you bring up a good point. Our techs will look into it. And that was a few days ago. Nothing. And then I asked Podbean a second time. So this is all like nobody's giving me the answer correctly the first time. Podbean says, oh, their service does not allow for mixed media like libraries or whatever. So something I'm going to have to do, and I am going to do it to make the podcast accessible to everyone on all the platforms, especially one as big as Spotify, is I need to go back into my files and I need to convert all of them using a different like software, which I'll have to learn, to convert all the files into MP3. So all the old ones that I have on my computer that are all M4V or whatever, I need to go back into, I need to take those files out of my computer, convert them, and then re-upload those episodes and delete the old ones. That's going to be a task. That is going to be a big task. I am going to do it because I love you guys and I love people who want to listen. And if people are trying to find it, they can't find it. That ain't no good for me. And especially if it doesn't matter if all the new files are MP3s. It's not like, well, they don't keep my whole library anyways, so let's just, do the recent ones. It's clearly affecting the recent ones. All these recent MP3 files, like I said, you can go back 2 episodes and all of a sudden there's a big 1.5 month gap because everything from 197 to like 193 is missing. Which means my episode 194 with my good friend Tasha's not on Spotify. My episode 196 with my friend Izzy, which is a great fucking episode, not on Spotify. So in the meantime, if you are listening on Spotify and something's not there, onemanpodcast.com. All right. So I told you about the problem. I'm working on the problem. I also have a solution for you. Okay. So check out onemanpodcast.com. You can stream them for free there. Every single episode is there in the meantime. So if you're looking for one that's missing, that's where you'll find it until I get it done. And obviously keep yourselves tuned in to One Man Podcast. I will let you know when I complete that process. All right. So that's some of the stuff I'm working on. What else, guys? Last week, I told you that I was going to go record something for Just for Laughs at Yuck Yuck's new location. So that's what I did. That show was much better than the one on Sunday. It was a lot of fun. I got to hang out with my buddy Nick Carter, not the Backstreet Boy, my buddy who I haven't seen in years. Great comic, was really like super into comedy when I started, gave me a lot of great notes, a lot of great perspectives. Scared the shit out of me at times with the industry and just things, things to do, things not to do, but a good dude. I actually went on a plane for the very first time apparently I was on a plane when I was 1 year old. I don't remember it, but I got to go on a plane for the very first time in my life, back in 2013 to go to his wedding in Vegas. It was the furthest I'd ever been from home. It was the first time I was ever on a plane. I got to go with Jason, my roommate Simon, my roommate Al. We were in Vegas for a week. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And so, and since that time, I haven't really seen him a whole heck of a lot. He got married, you know what I mean? And as people do, they move on and got to work hard on the things that are important. So, he just told me that he's starting to get back into it, which is great news. There are 2 people that left the industry since I started, and, that was just like, fuck, like there's a lot of people that leave, but sometimes like a few of them were like, shit, those guys were funny. They had a lot of talent, and it's a shame. Nick was one of the 2 that come to mind. And now that he's doing it again, I feel good. Very excited for him and excited to have him back in the scene. His set was great that night. I made a mistake in one of my jokes, and we're recording, right? So like, it's almost like a big punch at the end of one of my jokes. And, I said this line. The line is supposed to be, I would rather die a man than live as a monster. And I said, I'd rather live a man than die as a monster, or something like that. Or, something. I got it wrong. So unfortunately I come off stage. I'm like, I even said the line, and then I immediately say afterwards, I'm like, I think I got that backwards. Crowd laughed or whatever. But I come off stage, and the Just for Laughs, producer, whatever, was like, he's like, what we can do is we can do another take after the show. And I was like, oh, that's fine. Like, I can go up and say it into the mic and we'll record it. They were talking about boosting the laughs for everybody in post-production anyways. So I was like, yeah, I'll just say the line. And then he's like, oh no, we're going to get you to do it in front of the audience at the end of the show. And it was like, oh fuck, like a kid at a talent show who like tried to do it, fucked up, runs crying off stage, and then the teachers are all like, guys, we're gonna give Billy another chance, okay? He's gonna sing his song. I want everyone to be supportive this time. So I was just like, and I even went back on stage afterwards. Here's the funny thing too, I'm waiting to get this nightmare over. Like, literally walk on and say, guys, we got a little edit we're gonna do here. Someone messed up a line, we're gonna do it again, so let's give them all love. And I'm waiting. The last act went long. Not going to say his name. I don't know him personally. I know who he is. We've said hello to each other in passing, but I don't even think we've ever had a conversation together. And he is dating a good friend of mine too. So, but he went long, and quite long. And I might even be this might just be bothering me only because I'm standing there waiting to get this excruciating go back and record this line over with. And I had to wait 10 minutes longer because this guy did 20 minutes when he was supposed to do 10. So I was just like, oh, dude, come on, man. Come on. Maybe he didn't even know I was coming up after. Maybe he just thought that was it and fuck. But I don't know. But I just remember standing at the side of the stage, excruciating. Just get it over with. Get it over with. Let me get this fucking over with. So that was the only thing. And then I go up and I'm just like, hey guys, yeah, I fucked up. Here you go. Live recording, huh? I'm done. I'm gonna say the line. And then I think I just kind of went like, blah, 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 blah. Like I literally said the one line. I'm like, I even considered blah, 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 blah. But I'm like, no, I think I'd rather die a man than live as a monster. And then I did this big, like, throw my hands up, ta-da, and they all laugh. And it's like, I think they were even really like, so like, what do we do? Do we laugh at the joke? Or I'm just like, ha, 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 ha. Anyways, I even said to the guy 2 minutes ago, that was so horrible. I had to wait the whole show, by the way, too, to do that. I could have just left and been happy with it. And instead, I'm just waiting the whole show. I was first, by the way. I was first up. So I waited through everybody's set, which was nice. I got to hear everybody and, enjoy it. But wait through the entire fucking show to go blah, 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 embarrassingly, and then leave. Anyways, way better setup than it was on Sunday. And I had way more fun than I did on Sunday. So all's well that ends well, but I am very glad to get that over with. And I mentioned that Yuck Yucks is moving location. So I will say that today, prior to recording this episode, I did go and give them a hand packing the truck. Several comedians went to give them a hand packing the truck. So that was nice to kind of hang out with some comics and say hi to everybody and, help them move. So they don't know where the new location is just yet, but everything is in storage, and apparently they've already been looking for a new location. So when I have more to share with you on that, I will. But cool seeing my friends. I got to see my buddy Mike LeBlanc, who I haven't seen in a while, just again, quarantine. Mikey is, of course, the guy who came with me to LA. And, yeah, I mean, you can hear me and him record, talk about our experience in Los Angeles. That was, fuck, I couldn't even tell you what episode number, but that was a while back. Good times with Mikey. Good to see him. What else have I got here? I've color coded my what do you call it? What the hell do you call it? It's clipboard. Jesus, I'm scatterbrained. I've done color coding. I try because I write notes down as I think of them, but sometimes some things coincide with others. And, you just go like, you know what? I don't know what goes with what. So now I've got like 5 different color highlighters, and I highlight the things in the same color that kind of go together to make sure that I get all of those before I move on. Really cool thing to plug. I'm very excited to do. I've been watching promos for it for a long time, and the timelines match up now. My buddy Tim Riel, another comedian, very funny guy, he hosts a game called a channel, whatever the proper terminology is. He hosts an online game show called Codenames Live. So Codenames is a very, very popular board game by CGE, and they Tim has asked me if I'd like to be on it. And I'm very excited to be on it. In fact, the person who I played the most Codenames with, Jason, of course, my roommate, Jay's going to be my partner for it. And we're playing against another couple guys who are in media here in Ottawa. So that's actually taking place on March 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern. So figure out what time 8 p.m. Eastern is in your time zone, and you can tune in to twitch.tv/Tim, Tim, _Riel, RIEL. Okay. Twitch.tv/Tim _Riel. And that's the channel to watch Codenames Live. It's gonna be fun. It's a great game. If you haven't heard of it or seen it, check it out. It's really cool word association game. But fun. And of course it's comedians and people like that. So it'll be like, half playing the game, half busting each other's balls. The setup visually is really cool. So you're not looking at like some camera over his shoulder and people in the way. It's very interactive, very cutting edge technology. Really, really cool to watch. I'll be sharing some promo on the Instagram feed as Tim puts it out, as he always does. So be sure to check that out. As a matter of fact, I think it's Thursday or Tuesday that we do it, March 22nd. Oh, if only I had checked beforehand. That's the charm of my podcast. The 22nd is Monday. Okay, so we got a Monday. That'll be coming up on Monday. This is your last time hearing about it, the podcast, but keep an eye on the Instagram and you'll be able to see what's what. I believe that Tim does an episode on Thursdays as well. So if you wanted to see what it looks like before the episode that I'm on, you can check it out on Thursday at 8 p.m. as well. Twitch.tv/Tim Riel. Looking forward to that. And I'll tell you guys, of course, how that goes, and you can watch live. And there's a chat too on Twitch, which means that you can interact live with us as we're playing. So that should be fun for you guys. Would definitely love to have you there. Yeah, and that's that. Okay. What else have I got here? I did a spot at Absolute Comedy. Okay. On Saturday night, because my buddy Joey Elias, great friend of mine, asked me if I could do like a little 10-minute video for a charity show that he's doing. So I think he's getting a bunch of comics to send some stuff in. So I did a spot at Absolute Comedy on Saturday night. I got to see my buddy Jason Blanchard as well, who was hosting, my friend Jeff McKay, who's headlining. And it's interesting because like I don't have a ton of video equipment. Obviously, this is still not a video podcast. I'm thinking about doing it, guys, but with video comes editing. Lots and lots of editing. And that's basically what I'm talking about here is I don't have any, like, I have my phone, and I have a good phone. I have the iPhone 11 Pro with the 3 cameras or whatever. So it's pretty gall darn good show. Let me tell you, it takes good pictures. So, I am trying to figure out, or I was trying to figure out, like, okay, how am I going to record this? When Joey Elias asked me, I'm like, I can record a set. I go, is it cool if I do it at a comedy club? He's like, yeah. I wasn't sure quite what he wanted by a video, but he said, yeah, that's fine. So I was like, okay, I'll bring my phone to record the video. And then I brought my Zoom recorder, the one I'm recording the podcast on, to put on the stool on the stage and try to record the sound. And funny enough, I guess the angle or the mic that I used on the Zoom, because I don't usually use the ones that attach to it, I kind of attach my own mics here, and get the quality of sound that I want. I tried to do like, maybe it'll get me and the crowd. Anyways, long story short is I'm like, I'm going to record on my phone. So I'll have audio there, and the video. I'm going to record the audio on the stage, and I'm like, and that should be enough. And whichever audio is better, I'll just splice on over top of this, and I'll try to, edit it and make it sound good, blah, blah, blah. Well, there was a gentleman there who's recording one of my buddies, his set. They were working on a project, which I'll plug in just a moment. And I just said to him, hey man, if you're recording anyways, could I trouble you to record my set afterwards as well and send it to me? Like, I may need a couple angles for this thing. Maybe your thing will look better. And he was great. He's like, yeah, absolutely. His name was Scott Brown. There's a middle name there. Sorry, Scotty, don't know what it was, but Scott was great. Scott actually spent a good portion of the last couple of years working on a documentary about COVID, called Comedy 19. Okay. And it's basically like, what are comedians and entertainers and stuff doing with lockdown and quarantine, since the industry is basically messed up. You can actually watch that movie for free at comedy19movie.com. Okay. And the company that did it, Scott's company called One Last Shot Productions. So if you want to see a movie, I haven't watched it yet, but I actually plan on doing it this evening after I'm done getting the podcast ready, is just watching this movie, is following a lot of the up and coming comedians here in Ottawa. So, and some abroad as well. He's got a couple big names on there. But I would say predominantly it's a lot of kind of up and coming comedians. I'm excited to watch it because the guy seems very professional and, hardworking. So it's just a matter, I'm just curious to see kind of what the documentary is about. You can check it out for free. Like I said, comedy19movie.com. And the documentary is called Comedy 19, like COVID-19, but comedy-19. So check that out, guys. Some free content for you. And if you're curious, a lot of people ask me, well, there's someone else who's sort of taking care of that. Some personal stuff this week. I finished a game called Uncharted 3. One of the days where I just killed a few hours, I played Uncharted 3. Uncharted 3 is just another kind of Indiana Jones, Tomb Raider kind of game. The story in it is not particularly good. In fact, the story in any of them has not been particularly good. And it's almost like it's the same story every time. They're like, oh, we got to find this lost ancient city that, supposedly doesn't exist or whatever. And then they finally find it. Here's the funny thing. They find these cities and they're always like open, like they're always huge and open to the sky. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure a city this big that's open to the sky, someone would have flown over it or flown past it or seen it before. Like if they were underground buried, like the Cave of Wonders in Aladdin, it's like this city buried underground. I'm like, well, that makes sense that you never found it. It was hidden. But in all of these Uncharted games, by the time they find the city, there's big, luscious, green, beautiful things in the middle of the desert. Right? And it's like, well, someone would have flown over this or past it, or it would have shown up on a red. It's open. It's open. A few mountains surrounding it doesn't hide it for centuries. Anyways, and then this one here, like the plot was basically Batman Begins, where it's like, oh, we found this water supply that makes everyone scared, and if everyone's living in fear, then you're, destroy the world by poisoning everyone with fear water. I'm like, that's the plot of Batman Begins. They put the fucking fear drug in the water, and then they're going to vaporize it. It's like, yeah, I don't think so. Anyways, they're really just fun, jumping off mountains and lots of great action scenes. Like if you like nonsensical action that has no plot associated, basically anyone who's into the Fast and the Furious, except they don't say the amount of stupid throwaway lines, like, and there's not as many bald guys like Vin Diesel, The Rock, Jason Statham. Like there's just not constant bald dudes saying dumb things. So you might not like Uncharted if you're really into the Fast and the Furious series. You know what I mean? Like, okay, like if you take your keys out to go to your car, right? You're a Fast and Furious fan and you like driving, obviously Fast and the Furious, right? If you have the mentality, like when you take your keys out to go to your car, but they jingle when they come out of your pocket and you go, because that's your mentality. And that's why you like the Fast and the Furious movies. Like, then this game's probably not for you because they do use multisyllabic words. Basically, if you like the Fast and Furious movies, you're stupid is what I'm saying. But I know that went over your head and that's why I dumb it down. Because you like the Fast and Furious. But you play video games, Josh, you're a loser. Sure, I'll wear it. I don't give a fuck. You're still stupid if you like the Fast and the Furious movies. If, honestly, God, like if you're somebody who, when they announce that the what are they on, the 19th one or something? If they announce it, you're like, oh, fuck yeah, man, another Vroom Vroom Pow Pow movie coming out there, bud. Fuck, let's check it out, man. Fucking Fast and the Furious or whatever. Fucking, you know how long it took me to fucking learn the word furious to go fast and for fucking whatever, fast and faster, That's what they should have called it, just Fast and Faster. Is there even any nudity in those movies? Like, you'd think they would have to... Or it's like, maybe they didn't put any nudity in the Fast and the Furious movies because if you weirdos got an erection, like, you'd need an adult around to explain to you what was happening to you and your biology. Like, what's happening in my pants? Well, you see... Anyways, Uncharted is stupid. But if you like Fast and the Furious and you're ready to graduate to something a little more, Uncharted. Yeah. What an asshole you are, Josh. What an asshole. What if there's good people that like Fast and Furious? Yeah, I've never met one. And I would say that they are just as rare as these cities that are undiscovered and exposed to the sky. Okay. What else did I do? Like I said, I chatted with my little New York pups. I spent almost an entire day, like I was doing other shit, but we were in a I guess a group chat or something like that. And it was just like, hey, we were chatting about some stuff. One of the boys feeling a little blue, not in the balls, just blue in the heart. And we were just chatting about, hey, man, that's the thing too, right? I'm not going to go back into a big, long relationship chat. But that's the thing, man. When you're in a relationship with a shitty person and how to make this short and sweet. A lot of times we end up with people who never wanted to be in a relationship. Okay? They told us what we wanted to hear and we believed it. Yeah, I want to be with you, but they don't. And the problem is that does such damage because and when they're in that relationship, they got to start finding ways to get out of it. And because they don't have the accountability to say, hey, I didn't want to be in this. I just wanted what I wanted, but I also can't just be like, yo, I'm a shit person, right? They don't have that level of accountability. And I'm just oversimplifying it. They go, hey, look, there's something missing in me and I tried to get it out of you. And as soon as I realized that I couldn't get it out of you, I didn't want to be here anymore. But I couldn't just be like, yo. And there's the thing too, sometimes people will just make things so shitty so that you'll break up with them and they can wash their hands of the accountability. And the problem is that the other person who was interested in being in a relationship, was committed, was honest, was loyal, that person listens to what that person says. Like, oh, you're too clingy. You're too needy. Oh, you can't, like recently, oh, you couldn't handle me. Oh, I just don't think that you'd be able to handle my crazy or whatever it is. It's like, don't put that on me. You know what I mean? Don't tell me that I like your brain internalizes. So when the relationship's over, you go like, well, they said this to me and they said that, and there's all these conflicting messages and you're internalizing it, trying to go like, well, what did I do wrong? And what should I have done differently? It's like, listen, your brain can't solve this problem because it's not true, right? Like when they tell you you're too needy, but at the same time, they seem to want you to be there the second they want you. Well, you're super needy. You know what I mean? And you're telling me I can't handle you and shit like that. So it's like, when you're sitting there in pain and like, what did I do wrong? And why wasn't I good enough? It's like, listen, it's not on you. This was never on you. You didn't lie. You didn't say you wanted something that you didn't want. You know what I mean? Like you didn't blame the other person every time that you got insecure or whatever, or whatever. Like, I mean, it's just sad, man. There's so many people getting hurt by people that are hurting themselves, but just instead of looking inwards, they go out and they hurt other people. You know what I mean? They use other people. And don't have the fucking balls to come forward and say like, look, something's wrong with me. You were good and I didn't deserve you. And I need to go fix my own shit. Instead, they're like, oh, I got to get out of this. I don't want this person. I got to get out of here. How do I do it? I can't just break up with them because then I'm an asshole and I'm not the problem. Right? So they got to find things in the other person to try to blame. And then you do that person such a disservice because they turn around walking away feeling even worse about themselves. Right? Oh, I fucked up. I'm too this. I'm broken. You're not, man. You went into a relationship, man or woman. I will say it's not specifically man, just the person I'm thinking, of course. It's like, it's not your fault. You did what you were trying to do. And if that doesn't work for the other person, then just have them say, you know what? Nothing wrong with you. Just doesn't work for me. Not what I'm looking for. Own it. Don't try to make it about the other person because they will carry that shit around. They will walk around devaluing themselves. They're going to be trying to figure out this bullshit puzzle that you've given them. And it's not their fault. Not every situation is like this, of course, but some. Anyways, spent a good day listening to somebody's pain and trying to say like, look, it's not your fault. And you're being stuck in your head and your heart is your brain and your heart are trying to figure out something that it's not to be figured out. You're using the things that person told you, but here's the problem. What they told you isn't true. So of course you can't figure this thing out because you're working with broken pieces. You're working with puzzle pieces that don't fit together. So as soon as you realize, look, it wasn't on you. There's nothing wrong with you. And the last thing you should do is grab this, throw it in your mental baggage and carry it with you for years. This person never wanted you. I'm sorry. I'm not saying they didn't care about you, but they definitely didn't love you because they don't even love themselves. They used you and you were loyal. You were ready to be a part of it. It's just it was never going to happen. You didn't do something to fuck it up. It was never going to happen. And that's a sad thing. That's that sad thing in life. Sometimes you meet those people. Sometimes those people even start to believe that, like, whoa, everyone's like this, because I keep finding people like that. It's like, no. They're not everyone's like that. You just got to learn to value yourself, right? Because if you just wait to whoever's going to pick you up as is, ugh, you know what I mean? You don't want that. You don't want someone to just come around and go, oh, I'll take whatever I can get, because that, it's like finding a pet that's sniffing around your garbage. Oh, this thing wants my trash? Bring it in the house. You might regret that. I would go down and find something that sniffs garbage and turns its nose up at it. I would never want to join any club that would have me as a member. All right, did I talk enough about this? I think I did. I went to have a little breakfast with my mom. She was this was different. We're going to go for a little retail therapy, right? Just do a little bit of shopping. We were disappointed by the state of affairs of the Bed Bath & Beyond that we went to. Normally you go to Bed Bath and there's all sorts of cool little odds and ends and things like that, and products you never thought that you would want until you saw them. You didn't even know existed. And this one was like 80% bedding, which you would think from the title, but it was actually like the most pathetic walkthrough of Bed Bath. I used to go to HomeSense, and then HomeSense just became like way too much pet stuff and pillows. And you're like, oh, remember when they used to have like other things here? Like the kitchen section was much larger. The decorative stuff was much. Now it's just like a bunch of fucking pet stuff and old board games and pillows. Like, it's just, I don't know. I know COVID's hurt a lot of things, but I just stopped going to HomeSense because I was like, it's way too overpriced, and I don't even find cool shit anymore. It's all just like pet stuff. Which I know for certain demographics, like your pet is your everything, but fuck, it used to be a store where a lot of people go enjoy. Now it looks like it's very, niche. So I went through Bed Bath, and Bed Bath gave me that vibe, and I'm like, okay, like, it's fine. It's COVID, whatever, can't win them all. It's also March, no real big holidays around this season. They were like, oh, we're getting new stuff in every day. I'm like, oh, relax. I go, you don't need to defend this. This is pathetic. So I just was saying to my mom, like, 2 or 3 more trips to Bed Bath like this, and I'm going to fucking blackball it like HomeSense. But we had breakfast, which was nice. And we were full. Like, it was a big breakfast. So both of us were just like, ugh, haven't done a lot of walk around. So we walked through like Bed Bath for like half an hour after eating this big breakfast. We're both like, I could sit for a bit. My mom suggested, she's like, yeah, let's just sit and get a coffee and, relax for a bit. We're going to go through Costco. And she's like, I'm going to need to sit for a bit. So we sat in the car, and I got my mom into Breaking Bad recently. So we sat and watched an episode of Breaking Bad on my phone. Got a big screen on the phone. So we watched an episode of Breaking Bad, had a coffee, and then I went to Costco, returned something. And I'm like, you know what? I'm good to skip Costco if you are. And she's like, yeah. So skipping Costco. It's what we did. And then I picked up a cigar that afternoon, which I promptly smoked right before the podcast. We went and moved yucks. I came back. This weather was sunshiny today. I sat in the back porch, had a cup of coffee, smoked a cigar, Cuban, because they're legal here. I'd smoke a Cuban in the States too. But, a la cafe. So, yeah, that's what we did. The other night, I'll tell you guys 2 little things before we just kick it over to the Virzi thing. Where are we at now? 36 minutes. Fuck. Wow. I guess when I have more energy, it feels like less of a trudge. We had I guess the other night, trying to remember what night it was, Friday or something like that. My roommate Simon had a few of his friends over, and then Jason went down and joined them. I guess they were just playing some games or whatever downstairs. And at one point they're like, Josh, you're here. Josh, come down. Da, da, da. So I ended up, pouring myself just a wee glass of whiskey. Went down, and I ended up there, but everybody was like, the loudest ones were drunk, and holy shit, there's nothing more annoying than having like a full-blown drunk having a conversation with you. They won't let you out of the conversation. I'm sitting there, and I just kept trying to end it. I kept looking away, and I was like, yeah, you're right. Yep, for sure. Because, like, blah, blah, and they just keep repeating. Like, fuck, I do it when I'm sober, but I can also read body language. Guys, this was just brutal. And I was just like, I gotta, I was like, it was like impossible to get it in. And I'm like, this game's almost over. Can we just go back to the game and finish the game? Just blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, fuck. So it was nice. I got to see a couple people I haven't seen in a long time. I definitely stayed away from everybody's. That's the thing with drunks too. They want to get right in your face and talk to you. Yeah, it was fun. And then it just got too much like drunks talking and then confrontational drunk versus other drunk. And I'm like, I am going to ninja bounce. They go ahead and get each other in their crosshairs and I will slip out when no one's paying attention. So that was one of my evenings. Yeah. Riveting stuff. I'm going to kick it over to the Virzi chat. All right. I don't really have anything else. We don't have, coming up this week. There's nothing yet. Well, I'm sure there will be. I'll wake up tomorrow thinking, you know what? I don't have anything on the docket today. And there will. What was I going to say? This charity show, Scott, who I mentioned has his documentary there. He sent me his footage that night. So he recorded me. So I'm gonna try to blend my recording, his recording, and the audio file I took from stage together and make a nice little video for the charity show. But I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna let you guys hear the Virzi chat. I'm excited for you guys to hear that. Just a nice chat with my buddy. And I was going to have it be the headline thing, but 3 hours and some in, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is going to be, and it's a great way to bleed over into episode 201, get you to come back after all that fanfare. So, I chatted with Virzi. So I'm just going to tell you guys again, Paul Virzi is a good friend of mine, great comic. The interview that I did with Paul a few years back was quite literally the day after he recorded his record-breaking special for Comedy Central. I'll say this. Paul is a very accomplished comedian. He's a good buddy of mine. He recorded his special in Tarrytown, New York. And I had asked him a couple days before I headed down, like, hey, dude, would you be interested? I just thought to myself, there's no way he's going to say yes to this. He's going to be busy. How many people are going to want to chat with him, and do podcasts with him and stuff like that? Right after he records his special, everyone's going to, want to chat with him. But I was like, you know what? If I don't ask, I was trying to be courteous of him and his time, but I'm like, you know what? If I don't ask and he would have said yes, I'll hate myself. So I just said, hey, buddy, just out of curiosity, would you be interested in recording a podcast the next day or something like that? I'll be in town. And he was like, absolutely, dude. Yeah, for sure. Bring your stuff. So, Paul was like, yeah, I got to do some stuff during the day, but, in the evening, why don't you come over for dinner and we'll record the podcast. So, I went over there. Kamar, my roommate, came with me at the time. So we saw the recording together. We went to our Airbnb. Next day we got up and we killed some time in Jersey and then, went to see Paul in the evening. So, in the beginning of this chat, so quite literally that other recording happened, the day after his special, the day after a bunch of stuff, was in the books for him. And at the beginning of this chat, I was talking with him because after that recording, we sat out in his back deck, and we had some whiskey, we smoked a cigar, and we just sort of chatted. For him, it was cool because it was just a little bookend and all the hard work he'd been doing and just a little break. I think him and his wife and kids were about to take like a week vacation. It was just like all this work leading up to the special recorded, take some time. And I was like, great, absolutely. And he was just chatting with me. He was like, yeah, I think I want to call it Undeniable. And I chat with him about this, and the first part of the conversation, I was like, yeah, I want to ask you, why did you decide not to go with Undeniable? And he says his end. I'll let you guys hear it to hear chat about it, but just, so that's where it starts off with is the conversation that we had right after we recorded the long interview that you guys can hear. You can go back to August of 2017 and hear that chat with Paul Virzi, who's, in the last few years, just even more accomplished than ever, with all the things he's got going on. But, I'm going to throw it to that, guys. You can hear Paul on the Virzi Effect. That's his podcast. You can see a special in the States. You can see a special on Comedy Central. It's called I'll Say This. It's streaming on Comedy Central. And he's also got a podcast that's called Gun to Your Head, that he does on Patreon. He'll have a big guest on, and the two of them, they'll bring two things to the table. One of them's got to go permanently, and they discuss that. That's a Patreon thing. And then, of course, he's got a podcast called Anything Better. That's, I believe it's available on YouTube. It's him and Bill Burr. The two of them are very, very close. And they just talk about, they basically just talk about shooting the shit and whatever it is. Paul and Bill have a great dynamic together. But, if you guys enjoy this chat with Virzi, there's tons of different places where you can get free content, where you get some paid content. and he's there for you. So you guys enjoy this chat. The last time you and I chatted on the podcast would have been right after I'll Say This. What made you decide to not go with Undeniable?
Undeniable meaning for the name of what? The special?
The special, yeah. We had a cigar and a scotch in your backyard, and you're like, I'm thinking Undeniable.
Yeah, this is before we named it.
Oh, yeah. You were talking about, like, I'm thinking of names, but I'm thinking Undeniable.
You know, it's funny because I feel like that's the word that everybody uses, right? That's the word that Steve Martin uses. I remember when I would work with big comics, and everybody just knows, like, when you get Undeniable for the industry and they have to say yes even if they don't want to. But I think for the first one out of the gate, I didn't want to come across as arrogant. I knew that the work was going to be there, and I knew that the special was going to be what I wanted. I knew with the tapings, especially the second one, which I knew that we got it. But I felt like saying Undeniable out of the gate I didn't want people to start off, and my personality, Josh, to be honest, I didn't want people to start out with, oh, really? You know, arms crossed.
Right.
You know, you're sitting back with your arms crossed going, okay, this kid's talking shit out of the gate. And then it almost makes them look for an excuse to go, well, that I didn't find that. So what I wanted to do was I kind of wanted the first one to be like, if you remember the movie Rocky 1, when he did it in 76, he's this no-name guy that they literally picked out of a book to fight the champion. The American dream is we're going to give a nobody a shot. Not saying that I was a nobody, but I was kind of an unknown coming up. If you were a real comedy nerd, you knew me, but it wasn't to the level that until when I'll Say This came out, and then the podcast came out and stuff. So towards the end of the fight in Rocky 1, or the middle of the fight, he's getting his ass kicked, but then he just hits Apollo with a hard right, and the movie changed, and Apollo felt it, and it was like, oh, so I kind of wanted to be not under the radar, but like, watch what, you know, I got a little bit of a punch that I want these people to see. And so I feel like if I would have come out with Undeniable out of the gate, it would have been something where I didn't want you to have your defense up before my set. So right. I think talking to the team, it was like, yeah, I really think that the show was great, but let's just go with, you know, I'll Say This. It's just me talking and we'll see. And that was kind of the reasoning more from that's it. Because my personality isn't that like, listen, I definitely talk some shit. I mean, you know that. I talk a little bit of shit, but I didn't want to come out like Conor McGregor shit talking with the first one.
Right. It's funny.
You know?
It's funny. Like, and I remember you saying that. You're like, I'm worried. And part of me, like, and again, I'm romanticizing it because I love watching you. I try not to bother you unless I actually need to bother you. I just enjoy sitting back and watching his success. It warms my heart. My big thing is like, I love just when you were like Undeniable. Part of me is like, I go with that, like, that motivational thing. Cause you know better than I do in the business where it's like the people will come at you for having success, for working hard, right? Because people just see the end result. They don't know how hard you worked, how much you grinded, everything like that. I still refer to that. You drove 16 hours for a 3-minute set. You know what I mean? I still refer to that. Like people don't see that. They just see the end thing. And they go, this guy got this or got that. So I get all that. But I was like, but I love the idea. This is what I love. This was the romanticizing of the name Undeniable. Was that to me, I'm like, it almost was a perfect representation of you, but not in a shit talking way. Is that the advice you gave me and the advice that I heard you giving other comics was always like, you can't expect anything in this business until you become undeniable. Right. And so for that to have been like your breakthrough, because I don't even know these people, but I know that guys like Burr, anyone came out, Virzi, and I'd like, are you kidding me? You guys just launched Anything Better, which is literally a celebration of the positivity that you are. Whereas like, dude, anything better than this? Dude, how great was that? Like, you are such a positive, encouraging person. You know what I mean?
No, I appreciate that. And from that standpoint of Anything Better, I mean, Undeniable, I do get it. It's like I had to get Undeniable to get that. And it was definitely something to think about, but I just wanted the work to be the undeniable part and leave that to them. But I totally get that, and I appreciate the kind words. You know, for me, Josh, to be honest with you, I feel like what's the alternative to to not being positive? Am I going to just be like some curmudgeon? Am I going to be somebody that like tells a comic, hey man, well, you might not make it. And there are guys out there.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this is all luck, or that person just got this because of that, or that person got lucky, man. So-and-so happened to, what they don't realize is luck and opportunity all have to be met with talent and hard work.
Yeah.
It all needs to, that's the thing. It all needs to come together. So yes, you might have gotten lucky because a big agent or manager or somebody in industry walked into the comedy club and saw you have a great set. Yes, there is definitely good timing with that. But if the work is not put in, that industry person or that agent or manager could walk in and watch you shit the bed, or like watch you not be prepared, or watch the material kind of suck. Your presence isn't good. You're not in the performance. So those things need to meet. That opportunity of somebody great. Now, when I opened for Bill Burr in 2005, when I didn't know him, and it was his first real weekend of like Opie and Anthony tickets coming in and Bill selling stuff, there's 406 people was capacity at Rascals in Jersey. And I'm scared out of my mind. I'm a comic that's like 5 years in, about 6 years in. But out of those 6 years, probably only like 3 really going hard. And Bill wasn't even there for the set. He was downstairs. He heard me murdering, and it piqued his interest to watch me again. So if I was not funny, not prepared, and all of a sudden I'm just some guy that comes and goes that didn't spark something in him, there's a story. Nate Bargatze was at the stand, and Jimmy Fallon walked in. And guess what? Jimmy Fallon's clean, and he likes clean. Nate's clean. Yep. So Jimmy happened to walk into the stand. Nate's on stage killing clean. And guess what? Nate, he hit up Nate 8 months later saying, like, I'd like to do a show with you. Like, and they did like a pilot.
Wow.
So now if Nate wasn't working, was just kind of, really, I'm going to be clean. I believe that you put that out into the universe. Yep. So I believe that. I believe that if you are putting the heart, I used to be a door knocker, right? For phone, cable, internet. And I would knock doors in Queens, dude, at dinner time. I was knocking on people's doors and being in their lobbies in Manhattan selling phone, cable, and high-speed internet in like 2001, 2002-ish. I would be interrupting people's dinner. It was a really hard job. And you would have to tell these people, what's your phone bill? What's your cable bill? While these people are fucking cooking dinner. And I'm sitting there trying, I'll make your bills less, right? And there was this thing where it was like, when you want to go home and you're tired, and I'm like a 21-year-old kid, literally. And I'm going, when you want to go home tired, just knock 10 more doors.
Yes.
Not 10. When it's time to go home, it's 8 o'clock and you've been out there, because you usually would get to the office 11 or 12 noon. You'd have a meeting, you'd have lunch, you'd get your stuff, you'd have a plan, and then you'd go out into the field from like, let's say 4 to 8, knocking doors, 3:30 to 8.
Yeah.
You know what? At 8 o'clock, when I'm going to pack my shit and get my car and go back to my apartment and go to sleep, get to dinner, whatever I'm going to do, let me just knock 10 more. When I did that, my sales went through the roof. So the people that didn't succeed at that job were the same people in comedy that don't succeed. I believe there's a certain person that is just like, and it all sounds corny and cliche. These are all things that like the leadership books say. These are all things
but they work. They work, man.
And there's a reason why it's repeated. And the reason why it's repeated is it's like, put in the work. Don't use it as an excuse in stand-up to drink and do drugs, because I've seen guys do that, talented guys that are just alcoholics, because this job, you don't have to be up in the morning, so why not have a few? But guess what? Your writing goes down and all that goes down. So what you said, I really appreciate, but I don't understand not being positive when we're all going to fucking die.
Spoiler alert.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I get it. There's a comic that I really admire who I heard say once that failure to prepare is preparing to fail.
That's my favorite. Yes.
It's you. I heard you say that, buddy.
John Wooden, man. That's John Wooden's thing, dude. Yeah. You go into the fight prepared, and it's going to work out a lot better than if you just go, we'll see what happens. And it goes to show the type of work and who wants it, for sure. And
it's funny too. Like, I think the reason I wanted to tell that story is not so much that like, I think that the name should have been undeniable, but the reason I brought it up is just for, again, because, and it's kind of cool to see, because your career has been so great lately. I'm going to kiss your ass on the intro. Don't worry. But no. I won't make you sit through me telling you how great you are. It's all going to be in the intro to this, but, Oh, Joshy. Oh, yeah. I hear every now and again if I hear my name said on your podcast or whatever on a live video, if I comment on something, that makes me happy. Yeah, just the fact, like, for people to hear, because again, because you're doing so well, and like, it's still interesting for people. I like when people get to hear something like as much as you're positive. Like I said, even just our mentalities, like anytime, sometimes we try to carve out a little bit of like pride in ourselves, right? So like I said, when you're like undeniable based on everything you told me, all the explanations, just all that, I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And it's so Paul. The amount of people I've heard you give that advice, I'm like, so Paul. But it's interesting because, like you said, your mindset was like, people are going to be like, who's this fucking guy? Yeah. And I'm not trying to highlight it or stick with that. It's just for anyone listening who, is like myself, admires your work and enjoys it. It's like, yeah, you can still be successful. And we still have that mentality, like, that people are coming at us, you know what I mean? In the industry, like, as much as you see all the people who love you, it's like, I guess it's one of those things where it's almost punches in the ring that are still coming at you that people don't see. You know what I mean? So as much as they see all the good shit happening, they don't necessarily realize that that's stuff that we're working against as well.
Yeah.
So that's all. Yeah, so I thought it was a good example for people to see that. It's like, you can be successful. Nathan McIntosh, right?
Yeah.
Nate was telling a story a while back about how, like, he was in a green room opening for someone who he didn't name, but he's like, but if I named him, he's, tip of the top, whatever. And a commercial came on for a movie in the green room. And the guy was like, can you fucking believe that they went with that guy? I was supposed to get that role. And it was like, and Nathan's like, dude, like, it's still not enough. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you're just never happy. It was just an interesting thing. So I just, like I said, every now and again, I remind my audience that we still deal with that as much as we work hard and we have accolades. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's extra motivating and encouraging to see someone like yourself who stays positive all the time, despite that still going on.
Yeah, yes. But listen, I would be lying if I said that there weren't things that bothered me. And there are times when I definitely, not that I'm not positive, but there are times when, insecurity will make you question, like, dude, make no mistake about it, man. No matter what level you're at. Chris Rock was just on Stern saying that, like, he was insecure and that there are things that, happen with him where, like, younger comedians have said, like, they'll come across a big guy that can easily, that's a legend, that's an icon, that can easily, like, lift them up. But instead, for whatever reason, sometimes big guys in this business, if they're a big act, look at up-and-comers. There's two different types, right? You can have guys that are at a huge level that get up to the iconic, to the money, to the arenas or big theaters, like a Burr or a Kevin Hart or a Chappelle or, whoever. The list goes on.
Yeah.
You can have those guys do one of two things. They can see an up-and-comer that is crushing, and they can go up to them and go, hey, man, give them a pat on the back and go, love what you're doing, good for you. And then you could get guys that just kind of look at it as a threat or like, you know what, like, I don't want anybody taking my spot.
Yeah.
And I think, to be honest with you, and I'm not even saying that person's a bad person. I think what it is, listen, man, I think insecurity in this business, I think always be the amount of no's that you get. It's like the door knocking thing. I can knock 30 doors, and out of 30 doors, 26 of them are going to be no. But if I get 4, my quota is made. I think when you're in a business like that and you reach a certain thing, you kind of want to stay.
Yeah.
I remember, this is really funny. Do you remember a show on VH1 called Best Week Ever? And it was Sherrod Small, and it was like literally a talking head pop culture thing.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, dude, if I could just get that, right? I was like an open mic. And I'm like, if I could just get that, if I could go on VH1 and say 2 lines on there and have all my friends and family see me on TV, and I'm like, how are these guys not happy and satisfied? And it's like, no, man, you gotta, there's something good to want to keep getting better. I'm sure you and many of your listeners saw The Last Dance with Jordan. I mean, he was
yes.
How insecure that. I mean, if anybody wants to talk about insecurity, Michael fucking Jordan, man, is a guy that did still. Angry if somebody beats him in a board game because his older brother, he felt inferior to his older brother who was the only one who kind of beat him and stuff, and he kind of took that in life. So I think life experiences definitely make us a certain way, and I would be lying if I said that there weren't times I would see somebody on TV, and not that I was hating on them, but I remember one time I saw somebody on the Tonight Show. And I called my manager during it, going, "What the fuck? What's it gonna take for me?" And I'm like, and it's like, "No, man, that was that guy's." And I'm just, because it's just not in a bad, negative way,
Right?
But
Right.
You know, when you feel like you can do something and you're not getting it, you kind of want to ask your team like why. So, but I will say this to you and your listeners, any comedian listening to this, when you truly stop giving a fuck what other comedians are doing, and you truly understand that everybody has their story, everybody has their lane, and put the blinders on. Those horses with blinders, they're not looking at the other horse. You never see a horse during a race go like this, right? They're just, that'd be a pretty
I would love to. What the fuck is this?
Don't get me wrong. That would be nuts if you were like watching the Kentucky Derby and they're like, he's looking back, like taunting, just taunting, you know. But no, you know what I'm saying. So that's not your story, man. If somebody gets something, or like that guy with Nathan McIntosh in the green room looking at a trailer of a movie on a commercial and going, "You fucking believe that?" It's like, all that guy needs to do is just say, "Hey, man, like, it wasn't my movie to get, and let's go on."
Well, and it's funny too, because like, you know, I look at guys like you and I'm like, man, I would love I'm sure you've got guys you go, man, I'd love to. This guy clearly, it's like he's apparently at the top of he wants this. And it's funny because every now and again someone will come along, you know, below you and remind you of all that you've accomplished. And you're like, fuck, you know, like, yeah, that is pretty, you know, you get to enjoy it for half a second. But in terms of the comparison that you're talking about, like there's a, I believe it's a Buddhist quote. It's definitely Eastern, but there's one that's just like, they call it, say, comparison is the death of happiness. Because the soon as you start to compare yourself to anything, you're always going to be able to find a reason why yours isn't good enough, right? Oh, I made $1 million. Well, this guy made 2 million. I did it when I was 25. Well, he did it when he was 22. You know, I did it in 6 months. He did in 3. You know what I mean? Like you'll always find a reason why what you've accomplished isn't as good as what someone. So like you said, it's like, if you can focus on those blinders and just reflect and be grateful or whatever for what you've got going on, it keeps up. Dude, I remember. So when you were here in Ottawa, this is one of the things I laugh about it. Like, again, I appreciate it. All right. And Jason invited us to go to dinner at Giovanni's, the restaurant here. Free plug for them. Who knows if they'll be open after COVID. He invited us to dinner, and Jay used to do that all the time. And he would always take care of it. Always. So when he invited us, I'm like, yeah, we should go, man. Jay usually da. Well, in this case, he didn't. He didn't take care of it. And he's like this. Now we had this like black ink fettuccine, like squid ink fettuccine. It was like black fettuccine. And it was a good meal. But it was expensive. And I don't think, I think I don't know about you, but I know that if I had known I was going to be on the hook for it, I probably could have found a little bit cheaper fucking noodles. And I wasn't persecuting the black noodles. They were expensive. So, but I just remember that, like, I think a few hours later, you and I were having a cigar and a drink at the casino. Yeah. And you turn and look at me like, dude, how good was that fucking meal? And I'm like, that's Paul. Cause even you were kind of like, oh, fuck, this is a little, you know, but I'm like, but this guy, I'm still going, fuck, that was expensive. Paul has already turned it into a positive. Dude, how great was that fucking meal? I'm like, that's the attitude that I need to have. You know what I mean?
Because you're not going to, like, that's the alternative is just to be bitter. And it was a good meal. And the nice thing is you are going to pay for it. At least it's going to be, dude, not to get bitter or not bitter, but what's the word? Not to get dark on this.
Sure.
But my neighbor was walking just now. You know, we got like 2 feet of snow here, and I just see my neighbor. And all of a sudden she's just, you know, I hear her talking, and out loud she's on the phone. And she's got her hood up. We're all bundled up, and I'm getting mail and getting Stacy's car out of the snow. And I just hear her go, yeah, my body can't take this treatment anymore, you know. And then all of a sudden I see her walking. I go, hey, how you doing? And she goes, hey, Paul, how are the kids? And we start talking. And come to find out, you know, she's sick with cancer. And I didn't know. And I'm just listening. She's talking about how her kids are coming back from college to be with her and stuff. And I'm just going like, you know, with all the people that died of COVID, and what the fuck am I worried about? Am I worried that I don't have an extra few thousand followers? Am I worried that you know, it's like, you know something, man, if COVID's going to teach anybody anything, dude, it's that, you know, 400,000 people are going to die from this thing in our country, and who knows what the number is worldwide, and who knows what the real number is, whether it's a little less or a little more. Either way, it's been really, really brutal this last year, and people are getting sick. So me and Big J Okerson were in Montreal outside of the Club Soda.
Club Soda, yeah.
Club Soda.
Yeah.
And I would smoke a cigar, he'd smoke a cigarette, and we were just talking, and he made the point what you made. And it's like, comedians are always worried about they didn't get. And it's like, how about the fact that we're doing things way past what we probably ever thought when we went to our first open mic. But I do have that thing where it's like, I gotta, when people are like, what's Tom Brady doing? It's like, I know what Tom Brady's doing. Tom Brady is just a guy that got overlooked and was a 6th-round pick. He's like going for a walk with his dad on day 4 going, dude, am I going to just start putting out applications?
Yeah.
Am I going to be some tall, good-looking guy working at Dick's Sporting Goods? Because, and then all of a sudden he got the call. He's a backup. And then he's just like another thing. Aaron Rodgers of the Packers got humiliated sitting in the green room with his mother on draft day and pick after pick after pick. And now look. So I do have the thing where it's like, I want to beat this business into submission.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't, nobody ever does it because time comes and goes and you're gone. But if I can get to a place, I always say, like, reach for the stars, reach for the moon. And if you somebody said, reach for the moon. And if you don't get it or something, you're still in the stars. You're still up there.
Yeah.
Go for as much as you can. So like me, I'm looking forward to the next special. I want to act more. I want to continue doing successful podcasts and moving up. And wherever happens, man, as long as you put in the work that you could control, that's the thing. I can't be worried about what I can't control.
Right, of course. And that's what kills people. That's what a lot of anxiety is worrying about what could happen and trying to control it. And you can't, which is why you can't get rid of anxiety. You're trying to control shit dude, that's what the fear of death is I don't want this thing to happen. It's like, but you can't control it. You don't have a choice. But so you spend your whole life, dude, I suffer from that. It's like, I don't want this to happen. And people are like, for a guy who's worried about death, you sure don't take care of yourself too well. I'm like, well, hypocrisy is very on brand for me. But
I don't want to die, but I'm eating that meal.
Yeah.
I
mean, like, well, fuck, if I'm not here for a long time, I'm here for a good time. Right. So yeah, I'm going to suggest, I'm just going to throw it out there and then we can talk in a couple of years why you won't use this as a title. But I love the idea of, dude, how great was that ... for your next album? Because just what you say, dude, how great was that? And you're going to, it would sound like you're talking about the special, dude, how great was that? But it's just on brand with that. Anything better, and this and that, whatever. I think that's good. Dude, how great was that?
I'll tell you, if it's funny, because so when me and Burr, the great Bill Burr, called me up, well, we were talking, so for years, we talked about doing a show together, right? So he did the Virzi Effect for a handful of times when we worked together. I did the Monday Morning Podcast, and we would always have a piece of those podcasts go viral. Right. So it was the time machine thing. It was the he gets emotional thing. We toured Canada, and we would talk about all these different things, and people still would come up to us years later. Mm-hmm. Dude, that time machine thing. Dude, he gets emotional. So we always talked about eventually are we going to do it. But COVID hit. I was doing the Virzi Effect and another podcast. He's doing a Monday Morning Podcast, the Bill Burt with Burt Kreischer podcast. So it's all these different things. And finally, it's a crazy story. I went to Los Angeles weeks before COVID. Like, I got there late February, and I got back in early March, right? And I did the Comedy Store in the main room, packed out, great. I did the Laugh Factory, it was great. We went to a Lakers game. We smoked a cigar where the Lakers owner smokes. It was nuts. And I happened to go to Bill's, and we did the Monday Morning Podcast. Now, this is literally, I'm coming back home like March 4th. Yeah. And I have to do Levity Live in New York on like the 7th and 8th. So I get home, and everyone's going, dude, that Monday Morning Podcast you guys did. Once again, the chemistry's great. So finally, me and Bill were like, are we going to really wait? And then Bill hit me up and was like, you know what, dude, let's go and do it. So we're talking to our producer, and we're like, what are we going to name this thing? Right? Yeah. And we're going through all these different names. And Bill, one thing that Bill would always make fun of me about was, dude, is there anything better than a fucking, a tuna fish sandwich with a bag of chips? something that was just so, and we talked in the last episode about how like I've learned, because listen, man, Josh, I've been through hell, man.
Yeah.
The depression that I went through in 2016, I've been to, and even a lot of things that happened growing up, I've been to really dark, bad places. And then getting out of that and being happy and doing that, I can literally, and he was like, dude, it's an amazing thing you could do. Like I could like eat a sandwich and fucking look at a tree and appreciate it. So he just said something like, hey man, maybe in the trailer, like we'll get clips of you saying this and me saying this. And if you saw the trailer, he tells a story. And then, he would be like, Virzi's always anything better. And we were going back and forth, and I had texted, and I was like, dude, you always say that anything better, that can work. And he was like, I kind of like that. And then it just clicked. And it was just like, and it ended up being perfect.
Yeah, man. And I'm enjoying them so far. You guys are only got, at this point we're recording, this will be, coming out for my listeners like 6 weeks from now. But the episodes are good. So hopefully for them, when they hear about this, they can actually absorb like a bunch of the library at that point.
What we're really excited about is the first one did so well, but the second one was even better.
Yeah.
And the second one is like, so now both are just moving up. So, but listen, man, any podcast that works, and that's why I can talk to you like this, is because I'm familiar with you.
Yeah.
And we've hung out in Canada multiple times. So when I'm familiar with somebody and people kind of know each other, that's what makes it. People always say, Paul, you and Bobby Kelly, you and Bill Burr, you and so-and-so. When you know somebody and you can talk to them, that's what makes a successful podcast. Some guys that just maybe just know each other, hey, we should try a podcast. That could be good, but like that chemistry needs to be built over time.
Right. And, and the thing too, is I know that you have episode number 500 of the Virzi Effect coming up soon. I'm excited to hear what you've got going on for that. The last time I actually saw you in person was episode 400. I came to the taping in New York. So you and Sal, another combo of someone you work well with.
That was a lot. Yes, that was a lot of fun. And what I like to do is for every milestone episode, the Virzi Effect has now transitioned to, video, but, still talking unacceptables and all that stuff. But yeah, but 500 is going to be special. I'm going to have a very special guest. And, it's amazing how like that evolved. Because my podcast at first, like my audio, not that it got stagnant, but for me, like when it was audio before COVID, one thing that I love to do is, and your listeners should know this, when me and you spoke and I said any comedian who's not doing a podcast, it wasn't even necessarily for blowing up or getting more numbers. I mean, yes, you want followers, and a lot of people that listen to Virzi Effect come to my shows, but somebody said to me, watch what happens to your stand-up.
Yep.
And what people don't understand is we're working a muscle. Imagine talking for an hour or a half an hour with zero response and trying to be entertaining and funny. So now fast forward that years later after working that muscle, now you're on stage in, let's just say, Vancouver. I'll just pick a place. And you're in Vancouver and there's 300 people there and you're talking and you're kind of not in the mood to talk about the bit that's on your list. I don't feel like talking about this bit. And you see somebody in Vancouver with a funny fucking hat and you just talk to them about their funny hat. Then you start riffing about, and all of a sudden, that muscle that you're working on this. So the podcast was almost like you were doing a set once a week alone with zero feedback, makes you better on stage.
Yep.
And then I just, evolved with the video, and I built a studio here because of COVID. So
that's actually funny that and I'm glad you brought that up, because I told the listeners on the exclusive episode in the box that you had told me all of these different pieces. That was one thing that you had said to me too. You told me the same thing. Watch how much better your stand-up goes. And what's interesting to me is I didn't think that it was for the reason that it actually was. I thought, because you didn't explain that you were just saying, watch how much better your stand-up gets. And I was like, okay. And I assumed it would be like, oh, well, I got to come up with shit every week or whatever. And it wasn't. And I've told people, I go, I didn't realize he wasn't saying that your stand-up's going to get, or you're going to come up with more bits or something. It's that I'm at that point now after almost 4 years now. I talk to my fucking wall for an hour and I have no idea if it's interested. I have no idea if it gives a fuck. So when I'm on stage and I'm not getting laughs every couple seconds because I'm just talking something out, I'm like, I've even said that before. If I go on for a little bit and I notice we're not laughing, I go, I go, this is fine, guys. I talk to my, you cannot laugh at anything I say. I talk to my wall for an hour every week. Like this is fine.
Well, look at it like this.
I go, one person chuckles and I'm already crushing more than I normally do.
Think about crazy people who talk to their wall for an hour, literally with no microphone.
They're real pros.
Yeah.
I want to stick a podcast in an insane asylum with these people, and maybe the just the live from Arkham podcast or whatever, and it's a hit.
Great. Somebody had like somebody in an insane asylum was like, all right, dude, I'm just gonna get the greatest. All I need is a laptop and a mic. Would they allow that?
You just see that mattress wall ceiling open up and a boom mic comes in. They just start recording. Don't sign anything. This is your release form. Not that release, the release so we can use the
Yeah,
that would be so funny.
Their day about playing checkers with a crazy person, and it would be great.
Well, so I guess I know we're kind of getting close to the top of the hour there, and I appreciate you.
Oh, whatever, dude. I'm here. Whatever you got.
Cool, man. Well, I was just gonna say, like, how is it New York? Is New York under lockdown again? Because here in Ontario, we were in lockdown. We came out of it. Clubs are opening, plexiglass, this kind of stuff, and then it was like back to lockdown. So we're back in lockdown right now.
Yeah.
No clubs are open.
I think it's pretty similar to New York. New York was a thing where it was like it got to like you could do 30% capacity, no live performances though in New York. That's the thing. So the 30% capacity would, even if there was a comedy club that served food, it would be for that.
I see.
Yeah, unfortunately, New York and LA and places like that are just really shut down. I think like Governor Cuomo in New York said like opened it up again, but like it's a slow thing. Unfortunately, man, like I think the mask thing and I think the New York thing is going to be, I think we're looking for, for the foreseeable future, it's going to kind of be slow, but luckily I'm able to go to like, Arizona, Salt Lake City, Texas, Florida. So I'm able to go into these comedy clubs. San Antonio, I was at recently, half capacity. People are, temperature checks at the door, but able to work because before all this, I was going to do a new hour.
Yeah.
So my hour is like, I'm like locked and loaded. Like if I get 3 weekends of work in a row, I'm ready to go.
Nice.
It's a matter of when, where, and really how with the current situation going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you got a chance. I remember for a period of time you were doing some traveling. I remember Atlanta got canceled because of you'd been in contact with someone who had tested positive or whatever. And I just want to say, if I could, again, not too much ass kicking, but I appreciate that I appreciate you setting a good example for other people. A lot of people are struggling, so I can see people, going like, well, do I take the risk and make the money or do I do the responsible thing? And unfortunately, like a lot of people in a lot of industries, we're seeing a lot of people just, fuck it, I need the money. And it's like, yeah, but that's how this shit keeps going. Like if we're all just good bitches for a little while, maybe it'll be over soon. So I appreciated that. And I'm sure that couldn't have been an easy decision, but I remember seeing that post and just going like, thanks, man.
What was hard about that decision was, and this is the truth, I knew that I wasn't going to get anybody sick and I knew I had the antibodies. What the thing with that decision was, and I had a mask on when I did it, I hugged a woman at a gig in Atlantic City that ran it, the manager. I hugged her goodbye. Mm-hmm. I had the mask on. I had the antibodies. And I've been traveling and stuff, and I wasn't getting sick again. So when I found out that I had antibodies and I was done, I talked to my agent manager. I said, if someplace is safe, I'll go.
Okay.
And Atlanta was one of them. I was in Atlanta 3 or 4 months prior. And I got a call late the night before that woman tested positive. And I'm packing and I'm like, it was one of those things too, where I was like, I wasn't in the mood to go to the airport. I'm doing this and I'm still going. And I just said, I do have to tell the owner. So what I did was, and shout out to Jamie Bendel and Chris DePetta from Punchline in Atlanta. I called them up and I said, look, guys, I had texted Jamie. And I said, found out late last night. I was in a room and I was around somebody that tested positive. Now, I have antibodies and I'm good, but I just don't feel right getting on the airplane without telling you. Mm-hmm. And he called me up and he's like, look, we know you'll probably be fine and you're fine, but let's just reschedule. And I ended up, getting tested and all that stuff. And it was fine. And I found out that not only that, I still have reactive antibodies after all these months, which means I'm good. But it was just one of those things. But make no mistake, people were talking shit that I was working behind my back, but not knowing the circumstances, people. And it's like, listen, you talk all the shit you want. I got kids. I got a career. And somebody said, yeah, just because people want me and they don't want you, shut up, because like if they were asking you, hey, come and you could make some money during this. I mean, listen, dude, just going months and months without work and having a family and trying to keep your hour fresh. And it's like, dude, if I got antibodies and I had this thing and I fought it off, knock on wood, thank God I was one of the lucky ones, I'm going to work.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's more of that shit talking. I saw in the I'm trying to plug a lot of the stuff you're doing too. I listened to Danny and Ryan on your podcast because I know those guys from Canada, right? We've worked together before.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And just like it's like they're comedians against comedy or whatever. Their video where it was like comics canceling other comics, but once they get those comics canceled, it's like, oh, this festival wants me to do 20 minutes. That's going to be a problem. Like it's like the people who can't do what you do, mad that you're doing. It's like, well, were you going to do it? You're not me,
dude. I love those. Like what those guys are doing, Ryan and Danny. Like those guys just basically said like, this is not cool, and this is something that is like really against what your peers are doing, and this is against it's just everything that I don't know if you want to call it the far left or the politically correct, God forbid, the easily offended, that whole thing. Those guys just like came there, and in a year, the videos that they're making, it's just so funny, and they're fair about both sides. But what they're doing is they're highlighting the lunacy of some of the things, and they do it in such a funny way. And Ryan Long said something on the podcast. He goes, well, how come it seems like you're not going what did he say on my podcast? He said, you're not going so far. You're not going to attack the right as much as you attack like the far left. And he goes, well, that's who's attacking me and my friends.
Yep.
He was like, I'm going to mock anything that's ridiculous. Like if the far right was doing something, of course they're going to mock that. And they have, when they did the CNN and the Fox News thing, which was hilarious. They're just basically exposing the overly nuts on both sides in a funny way. And that's exactly why their YouTube is blowing up, because a lot of people think like that. Yeah.
Well, dude, a lot of people are so full of shit. So full of shit, so self-righteous. My position is the right one. Like, dude, the people who are like, okay, so there's two quotes that I really resonate with, especially now, just in the time that we're in. One of them is, the smallest dogs always bark the loudest.
Yeah, that's great.
So when people are fucking small and weak, they're the loudest ones, and you can't hear the intelligent people because the little, anyways. That's one of them. But when it comes to all of this over censoring and everything like that, like I'm egalitarian. I'm not right. I'm not left. I just believe that everyone deserves a fair shake. Not that they get one. I'm not saying that's how life works, but I think that you deserve one. Everyone deserves a seat at the table. I don't care your race, creed, whatever it is, gender. I don't care. I'm going to judge what your merit is based on what you say, not what you look like or where you're from or whatever it is. But the quote that I heard a few years ago when all this stuff started coming out, whatever, the oversensitivity, some of it's merit, like some things need to be talked about, but just like you say anything and it's a word, is those that can't control their emotions want to control other people's behavior. And so all these people they get upset. So it's not, oh, well, I got to look at myself, or maybe it's, I don't like that. You don't do it. Right. So. Yeah.
Well, one thing that's happening with me, and I really learned, one thing that I had not a hard time with, but I'm such a prideful guy, and I'm a real guy, I'd like to say, as I'm getting more popular, there's definitely been some, a very small percentage, thank God. But, because a lot of people like what I do, but there's definitely been some hate, because that's going to happen. Mm. And, I would do this thing and people are like, dude, you just cannot. I remember when I'll Say This came out, people told me, you're going to reach you're going to reach another level.
Yeah.
And there's going to be an adjustment period, because now it's on a national level, and it's going to be on a level where you're going to hear negative things. You just are. It's what it is. It's life. And listen, you can't please everybody, nor should you. Right. If 100% of people love what I'm doing something wrong, because it's like, there are certain people that you don't want to appease. Right.
Right.
But I'm taking it personal. I was like, this person doesn't fucking know me. I'm a Sicilian lunatic. So I'm like, I'm a Sicilian and Greek lunatic. I want revenge. And like, I want to sit down with these people. So if I would get drunk, Josh, I would get drunk. No, I would like drink a couple glasses of red wine, and I would scroll, and I'd see like 97% good shit.
Good,
and then
good.
One motherfucker go like, Virzi's just not that funny, and he doesn't deserve and this thing. And then I would go, eat a dick, you hate, and you fucking. I would just say something, right? And then I gave them power.
Right.
And then what happened was they would come back, and one guy got me good. He goes, "Why are you even responding?" It was literally like, I wanted, if I ever see or talk to that guy, I'm gonna be like, dude, that was like, he goes, "Why are you?" So I did it, and now like this podcast with Bill is starting to really be big, and it's Bill Burr. But what people don't understand is they see, oh, I'm doing a podcast with Bill Burr. What people don't understand is, like, did you ever think for a second Bill hit me up?
Right.
Like, that's what people don't understand. Like, did you ever think for a second, hey, man, I want to do me and you got a good chemistry. I want to talk sports with you. I want to talk comedy with you. Whatever it is, I think we're going to have a good thing with comedy and sports. Let's do a podcast.
Yeah.
People don't see. They're like, oh, Bill Burr is, he's a generation ahead of me. He's a legendary. He's a great, one of the best stand-ups there is, maybe ever. Or people would put him in an argument, and then here you go. I'm this up-and-comer who's like 10 years behind him, a generation behind him coming up, but he wants to work with me. He believes in me. They don't see that. So they'll say something, but I heard that motivational guy, Gary V.
Yep. Vaynerchuk.
And I heard him say, Vaynerchuk, I heard him say something today, which was amazing. And it was weird. I was like in the bathroom taking a piss, and I just put my phone down without any sound. And I'm literally just not thinking my phone is on. And all of a sudden I hear this voice, and it's him. And he goes, if you go to my content, and you look at my content, and then you come at me starting to say negative things about me after you going through my content. Yeah. He goes, that's not a reflection of me. That's a reflection of you.
Yes.
And I'm just like, and I'm like pissing. And I looked over and I'm like, that's profound. And it was like, so people are going to say what they're going to say. People, and I've learned it. And listen, I was not good. I'll be the first to admit that I was a type of guy where it's like, if you say something about me personally, oh, fuck Virzi, I find him boring, I don't find him this, he just got this because of that, all of those things, I was like, well, dude, you don't know me, because if you sat down and knew me, you wouldn't be saying that. But that's not reality.
Right.
That's not, I can't sit down with the world, right? So I need to understand that that's going to happen and allow that to happen, and now I have. So now we get all these reviews, we get all these numbers. I know there's going to be amazing things said, and it's way more positive, but there's going to be a handful of people. And listen, there's going to be a handful of people that don't like me. They don't think I'm funny, and they don't like me. Fine. And that was part of the thing where I'm going, oh, man. And that's why I love what you just said. The little dogs.
Oh, smallest dogs bark the loudest, buddy.
And they look at these people, and they got like fucking 36, 37 followers. And I'm like, I'm worried about this guy. This guy's probably got an ugly wife. I hope his kids are ugly.
I hope your children love you. I hope your wife is faithful to you. But you're a piece of shit. I know that about you.
Yeah. And listen, man, a lot of people that don't do like to critique people that do.
Of course. Absolutely. Like it's almost like those who can do, those who can't teach. And I'm almost like, what do those who can't teach do? Blog? Tweet? Like, you know what I mean? Those they keep going down there. It's like, okay, you can't do any of that shit. It's funny because what you're saying about Gary V is actually a quote, a story of Buddha. When Buddha was teaching and there was.
Are you a Buddhist, by the way?
If I was going to be anything, I would be more Eastern philosophy. Here's my reason behind, if you don't mind me telling you.
Bring it up a lot. That's why I asked. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's only that it's made the most sense. I mean, the last 10 years trying to find peace and fear, like there's a lot of Buddhist shit that just makes sense. What I like about anything Eastern, Taoism, Buddhism, all that is that they're not like praise this person. Even like Buddha was a teacher. He isn't somebody that you worship. Right? So they're not giving you somebody that you have to listen to, that you have to worship, that you have to praise, and anything good happens to you. It's all because of, like, it's not that. It's just, here's a guy who is a fucking walking quote machine that just kind of puts shit into perspective, basically. That's what I like. And I also like the Eastern stuff because like they were saying for years before science proved it, that we all come and go from the same energy. We're all part of a same thing, whatever, And like, that's it. Right? Like whatever you do to someone else can come back on you. And then science came along later and proved that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, merely change forms. That's literally what their religion said years before science could prove it. And they're not preachy about it. They're not telling you got to do what I say. You got to pray. That's what I like, is it's still the same lessons as all of the theology stuff for Christianity. They're not bad things. They all have the same lessons. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. Anyways, but the Buddhist story that I heard was when Buddha was spreading his teachings, there was all the Brahmin who, if you ask me, I honestly don't know what a Brahmin is. I assume they're like the higher ups of the area at the time, but the Brahmins were like the lords, the royalty, the elite. And I think he hosted, he was doing a teaching, and some guy, one of the Brahmins, came to him and said, "You don't know what the fuck you're talking about." I assume it's different vocabulary, but you don't know what you're talking about.
I love how you turn that guy into a guy from Brooklyn.
You fucking
Listen,
this fucking guy. Come here. Yeah, exactly. But he was like, "You don't know what you're talking about. You're full of shit. I know you're full of shit." And da da da. And then he said to the Buddha's like, "Why aren't you getting mad? Why aren't you arguing with me?" And he said, "Well, let me ask you a question. If I hosted a dinner and I invited you over to my house and offered you my food, and you didn't want it, whose food would it be?" And he's like, "Would it still be mine?" And he goes, "Yeah, it would still be yours," or whatever it is. And he goes, "Well, that's how I feel about, that's how I feel about your criticism. I don't accept it. It's still yours. Your hate, I don't accept it. It's still yours." You know what I mean? And that's what he talked about, was saying that anytime you accept that criticism, that hate, those naysayers, you're breaking bread with them. You know what I mean? So that's the whole idea, is that you're sitting at the table and you're engaging in it with them. Your hate and whatever. Yeah. So Gary Vee said a much shorter version of it. You go seek my shit and then you hate it. Like that's on you. That's Buddhism. That's Buddha saying, like, your hate is yours. If I engage with it, then I'm sharing it, and I don't want it. It's all yours.
Yeah, man. And like, I made some mistakes, dude. And I definitely attribute them to, not hammered, but a couple glasses of wine and somebody that wrote something that bugged me. And I'm going, well, hey man, fuck, you don't know me, know? And it's like, that guy could be literally sitting in New Mexico. I'm never going to see him. And it's like this, and somebody, but you know what? A lot of fans were like, "What's the hate with Paul?" It's like, if you don't like Paul on the podcast, just don't listen.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think, if you had video of you sitting there swirling your Cabernet, trying to come back, and they're like, "What's with the wine, you fucking cocks?" Like, you know what I mean? It's like that. Why are you responding? And what's with the wine? You're like, fuck.
No, dude, when that one guy goes, "Dude, only a douche. Why you respond?" Dude, it was really funny. He got me.
Oh, fuck yeah.
I was like, yeah, when he said, like, "Dude, why are you even responding to this?" And it's like, yeah, you got to be, somebody said, Chris D'Elia, I mean, he's going through his own thing right now, but Chris D'Elia said something where he would get, Chris D'Elia was getting a lot of hate before what happened.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, like, I guess he did on his podcast where, he would go on Rogan or he'd go on these big platforms, and there's going to be people that hate and say things that are mean, right? And he said something like that. His wife said something like, "Do you think Tom Cruise would ever," right? Like, do you think Tom Cruise or somebody like that would ever, not saying that us as comedians are A-list movies, but do you think that any of those people that are doing something bigger and are out there doing what they're doing, so many people are also very probably jealous. One thing I've learned is people get jealous when they look at somebody who actually had the balls to go after their dreams. There's probably somebody jealous that, oh, wow, this guy's got 3 podcasts and I would like to do one and I don't have the balls or courage or know what to do. So I'm just going to shit on all this stuff. So there is that aspect, of it. But what's funny is it's true. Somebody like Will Smith or Tom Cruise, there's a bunch of hate for those guys. You think they're going to just go to their mansion, laugh it off, and that's what you do. But you made me think of something really funny, because you said Buddha was like a walking quote machine.
Yeah.
But what's funny is there were probably guys that were like the opposite, that were like hanging around, like trying to say these like amazing things, and people were just like, "Nah, dude, it's Buddha's got it. Like, you don't have to." No, but just hear this. Like, just hear this one.
No, it's I got a good one.
No, I got a good one. It's about like how you getting food for your family. It's like, dude, Buddha, just find your own thing, dude.
He was the Jordan of quotes.
like Buddha was the Jordan of quotes, and this guy was like trying to get in the league.
Oh man, I dig that stuff, like, because I mean, I find, in all honesty, the reason I like those quotes, but I like quotes in general, and I think that's one of the things that comics do, like when we challenge shit and whatnot, not to like try to make it serious or whatever, but I always used to find that, like, when I got into an argument about something, like just, or discussion. Argument is a fair word, but it always sounds aggressive. But just in a discussion or an argument with something, the amount of times that I would support my argument, not with like a doctor said or the Bible said or you know, senator, whatever said, like the amount of times that I would quote a comic to make the most sense of a particular topic or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
quote Carlin on something, or quote Jim Jeffries on something, or quote Stan, like just somebody who's like, they cut through the bullshit, right? Because I find that those other facets are like, oh, here's the sterile, diluted, like, what did you actually say? Like, you said a lot of stuff, but I didn't really get anything out of it. Whereas like comics, it's like the economy of words forces you to make your point and make it so that everyone understands what you're saying.
Yes. Well, the good ones do that, and the good ones will allow people to do that, man. And look, we live in life is not perfect. The world is not perfect, but one piece of advice I can give to people that whether they do comedy or they're doing good in any job that they have, whether they're in the corporate world or whatever, is that when you are succeeding, when you are moving up, whether you're going up the steps slowly or you're running up them, if you're continuously moving up and because of that you're getting hate, that just means you're winning. And
Absolutely.
that just means you're successful and you're winning. You know, you're never the bigger you get, there has to be that other than, oh, he's great. It's like the balance of life.
Yeah.
It makes sense. The numbers are bigger. Not everybody's a great person, and that has to happen. So what people can take comfort in is knowing, oh, not only is the smallest dog, like you said, I love that, has the loudest bark, but that means that dog kind of knows you're beating them.
Yeah.
And when you can put that into it and go, oh, man, I'm kind of making moves now. You know, I'm making moves now. It's a nice thing to know. But listen, all of that, again, needs to be in the rearview mirror. It's just there is an adjustment period. If your podcast, this podcast we're on right now, if this podcast becomes the number 1 podcast in Canada or a top 10 podcast in Canada,
right,
it's impossible for there not to be people that have podcasts in Canada to not hate on it. The one man podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I love that you said the rear view one. Like the reason I love the quotes. It's almost like the guys with the quotes are like just like one-liner philosophers. They're just not funny. You know what I mean? Like it's all these one-liner guys, the danger fields of philosophy. But but when you said the rear view, like it's a thing too. Just in terms of one of the quotes I love is when you're talking about like your mentality about like the past and whatever. It's like one I like is like, you know, there's a reason that the rear view mirror is so much smaller than the windshield. You know what I mean? Is so there's so much more forward to see and
Josh,
looking back.
You're killing it with me. No, but like it's really true. It's like, you know, imagine being a marathon runner, right? And you know the people along the sides that are giving you water and like doing that, and like, you know, they're just these out of shape fucks who just have no fucking desire to do what you're doing.
Yeah,
and there's got to be some energy there, right? And there's going to be a lot of people going, yeah, Josh, or yeah, Paul, go, and they hand you water. There might be one dick going like, you still suck, right? And
why did you leave your house to tell me that?
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? When they're all the way far behind, they're still there, not achieving something, not burning any calories, and they're just there.
Yeah.
And you're moving forward. So all of these things. And you know what's funny about quotes and people saying like, oh, well, that's a cliche thing. Anytime something is corny or cliche, it kind of is for a reason, because I bet you every book you read on a Fortune 500 company CEO or a big time political leader, whether it be a president or a senator, all of those books of somebody that has done Gary Vee, all of those books have that, because it's like, yeah, it might be corny or cliche, but guess what, guys? That's how the fuck I got here.
Yeah.
I got here because of those quotes. I am winning in the game that I'm in.
Yeah.
Or I'm moving up. I should say, in the game that I'm in. We all have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
The best comedian in the world. I bet you Dave Chappelle and I bet you before Richard Pryor, you know, died, rest his soul, when Richard Pryor was at his peak, George Carlin, I know he was.
Yeah.
Always going, I could get better, I'm going to get better.
Yeah.
But when you're moving up in the game that you're moving up, there's a reason why. and all of these philosophies and saying, come in. Now, there's going to be negative people listening to this podcast going, fuck Josh, fuck Paul. I got passed over at that club just because the guy was fucked. They were in a relationship. Like, there's going to be some negative thing. Let them, guys, put it behind you and move forward.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, if you listen to any successful person, they don't do a TED talk where they say, I got to the top by bitching and whining and complaining about what everybody else got, focused only on what everyone else was getting. I whined, and then one day UPS showed up with the contract for my big success.
How funny would that be if there was a book about that? The guy's like, how I was negative to the top.
Yeah,
and it's just the fucking guy.
Bitch your way to the top.
I love how I was a hypocrite, because I'm going like, listen, you got to be positive, and these nobodies are just barking like a small dog, and I'm drinking 2 glasses of Cabernet, going, eat a dick, you fucking nobody, with your 36 followers.
And your ugly wife. That was my favorite part. I hope his wife's ugly. I hope she's ugly, and he has to fuck her face to face with his eyes open. Lights on.
I would scroll through pictures hoping their family was hoping it was just a bad job and just a bad situation, like a 1997 Nissan, that was fucked up. Just I'm up in rear view mirror. I'm past.
Oh my God, it's so funny. I was thinking of something lately because there's so many people yelling at each other too, right? We all know this, whatever the subject, whatever the group is. And everything that everybody's yelling about, there's merit to all of it. You know what I mean too? Like I thought of this when we were talking about just the comics that are like, why isn't this person, why is this person upset scrolling through tweets or whatever? I was saying that's kind of almost the curse of being an artist, is like a comic can get on stage in a packed room of 200 people and 199 of them are dying laughing. And there's one guy at a table with his arms crossed, and we're sitting there, in our heads going, what the fuck's wrong with this guy? What's his fucking problem? And I'm like, 200 people, that is 99.5% of the room laughing. That is A+ with honors results in my work. And we're focused on the one guy that's not laughing.
Do you want to know?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't mean to cut you off.
No.
It hit me. The reason why, all right, and this is heavy, but I believe it. That one guy that's sitting there with his arms crossed, purposely not laughing, when 199 people are laughing, that one person represents our insecurity and our self-worth in a way. So what happens is we want to know why that guy is not with the 199 for whatever reason, because our insecurity is going like, maybe he's right and they're wrong. I was thinking that. I'm like, I hope he said, yeah, that's the whole thing, dude. And it's much as that sucks. Like I can always tell, again, I'm a generation behind you stand-up wise, but as a guy who booked the open mics for almost 10 years of just seeing new people every single week, all the time, just, you'd always see, as people were getting better, you could see who was going to be a comic and who wasn't. Cause the guys who would get off stage and be like, man, I fucking destroyed or whatever, all it is, whatever, and they did okay or poorly. And then the person who did well, and I don't mean crush, but they just did really well, whatever. And they're coming off stage going, I fucked up that line or whatever it is. And I'm like, that's the comic, the one who's not satisfied with it. And it's not to say they hate it and they're going to quit, but it's just, I always say that's the curse of the artist, because as an artist, you want to get better. So your perspective is, what could I have improved on? As opposed to, oh, look how great I am. But yeah, it's one of those things where you're just like, I want to know what I can improve on, what I can work on, what I can get better. And the other guy's like, I'm great. Well, if you're great, then that means there's nowhere for you to improve. There's nothing to work on. And they say safe is dead. As soon as you think you're safe, you're fucking done. You're toast. Yeah, no, that's the truth, man. The guys that get off, like, even Rodney Dangerfield, there was this thing where my first manager knew him. My first manager, when I was younger, he said, Tony Camacho, shout out to Tony Camacho. He said, Rodney Dangerfield got off stage and murdered. And he was just distraught. And they're like, "What, Rodney, what are you talking about?" He goes, man, I shouldn't have said the there. Yeah. I shouldn't have said the there. And it's like, and that's the thing, man. And it is, it's like, you're always want to improve. You always want to get better. I just think that there are just certain people I've mentioned this before many times on podcasts, rest his soul, but guys like Kobe Bryant, guys like Tom Brady, guys like Derek Jeter, guys like Jordan, there are certain people that just, it's never good enough.
Yeah.
I have to win. I'm going to win. And if I don't, I need to find out why. And then there's people that are delusional and think they're the shit if they do a set that's a 5 or a 6.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Those people that'll ask somebody like you after a show, a new guy, because I'm sure you're headlining, you got opening spots or whatever, and someone go, "Hey man, what did you think of my set?" And they're not asking it because they actually want real feedback. They're hoping you're just gonna go, "Oh, it was great." Like that's just what they want to hear. So when you give them some real stuff that they can work with, they're like, "Oh," you know what I mean? Like they're almost like, "Oh, like." I just wanted you to tell me I was just amazing. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to hear the shit that they need to be able to improve and get better. I'll leave you with this. This was just something I was going to alluding to it a little earlier. If we're still good on time, I saw the phone. I don't know if you got a call coming in or something.
No. It was saying that my battery was 20%. I'm good.
Okay. And the reason I'm bringing it up with you, it's a little, I guess, polarizing for people, but it's positive. The reason I wanted to bring it up with you is that you're the kind of guy, like I said, like sometimes some dark shit comes up, but I always find that you're a dude who can turn it into a positive. That fucking black spaghetti. Whatever, the fettuccine. But it's this was something I was thinking about, and I'm like, right now everyone's yelling at each other. Doesn't matter if it's the LGBTQ plus community or Black lives. People are finding things to fight about and argue about it.
Yeah.
Something that was just of interest to me. Have you ever heard of the 3 stages of truth?
I might have heard of the 3 stages of truth, but I've never. I've heard of the stages of grief. I've heard of the stages of death, but I never knew what they were. I was never told.
Yeah. So this is one that I thought was interesting. And I thought it was more common, but for what it's worth, a shitload of people haven't heard of it. So it might be good for me if I'm writing this into a bit or something. But the 3 stages of truth are ridicule, violent opposition, and finally acceptance. Just like grief, the last one is acceptance. But the idea is that anything that is considered true goes through those stages. So for example, I mean, even though it's being argued now, but like, hey, the world is round. It's like make fun. Then it's the violent opposition to the idea. And then of course, finally acceptance. And everything that is considered true and normal now goes through these stages. And so the positive, I was talking with someone and I try to see if I can find the positive in any situation. And I'm like, with all of these arguments, with these communities and these movements that are important, is that the fact that, people are making jokes, the fact that people are arguing and things are getting kind of heated I'm like, the positive is that you're going through the stages of truth, which means that the good news is when this shit is over, acceptance is on the other side of it. And yes, it sucks, but guess what? Nobody gets to sidestep it. Nobody, whether it was women's suffrage or whatever it was, nobody got to sidestep all the things necessary, all that shit to get to the part where it's accepted and now it's just right. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So I thought that's just something I wanted to share with you, because I thought that it's of all the things we're all fighting about is like, look, if we're gonna have all this shit going on, let's just remind ourselves that the positive to be taken from it is it means we're going through it, because there are still causes that we were aware of long before some of these other ones that are still barely in the ridicule phase, right? Like people still just make fun of vegans. Like the idea of not killing something to eat it is ridiculous. I'm not saying that I believe that. I'm like I said, I'm a hypocrite. I would like to not kill animals, but bacon and meat is delicious. You know what I mean? And someday people will try to come back on us like we were fucking animals for doing it.
Yes. Yeah. I think too, Josh, is that, every time I say your name, I want to go, oh, Josh. What it is a lot of people, and a perfect example of what I'm saying is how divided at least my country is. Okay, I don't know what's going on exactly politically in your country, but my country right now, and it's so funny, we're very different, we're so close to each other, but the United States of America is 51-49 every 4 or 8 years. And either the right gets the 51 or the left gets the 51.
We are too.
Okay. So, and it's just back and forth.
Yeah.
And it's just back and forth. And the real truth is, and I was talking to people about this. We had a dinner company come over for dinner, our neighbors, who just got over COVID and stuff. So we all had antibodies, like, why don't you come over for dinner? And we were talking, and it wasn't getting crazy political, but it was talking about, it's kind of funny to me that you have the far right, or you have the, I don't want to say far right,
Right,
you have the right and the, you have the right and the
You
left.
have the small dogs on both sides.
And it's funny, right, but it's funny that when the independent runs, the person that kind of is talking the way me and you are talking, which I find very logical, and I find very, very down to earth, and okay, I see points here and I see points there. Where could we meet in the middle to get the majority to be on board? Right? And that candidate gets like 3%. They're laughed out of that. They're laughed at. You're like, oh, that no. It's going to be Trump or Biden, and there's going to be wars on both sides. And then it's like, well, what about this one person who thinks like that we could do it? And it's weird. You want to know what it really comes down to? There's truth to things, but but people make it absolutes.
Right.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is this. You cannot like Donald Trump. And I'm not making this political. I'm just using examples. You can not like Donald Trump, and you could say that Donald Trump is all these different things and his rhetoric. But then people can say he's Hitler when Hitler killed 9 million people.
Right.
You could say Joe Biden is a communist socialist and he wants to tear apart this country. And you're like, okay, but A, he grew up in this country. Why would he want to do that? So maybe you don't like some of the things he's doing, and maybe there's some merit in the things that you don't like about both candidates.
Right.
But it's definitely not what the worst isn't the worst of it, and the best isn't the best of it. And people can't come to that even in anything in life, like vegans or like anything.
Yeah.
It's like, this person is not as good or great as you think, and they're not as bad and awful as you think on any side. It's just people pick that side.
Yeah.
This is my team. You're all nuts. Go fuck yourself. Everybody's crazy. And you get into that army. And once you put that army's uniform on, you're in that army.
Right.
Listen, I eat steak, and I eat meat. Do I think vegans are all crazy and weak? No, I mean, listen, the ones that like will protest outside of a restaurant, that's a little fucked up.
Of course.
It's like, let me eat my fucking medium rare prime rib in happiness and peace, but I'm not going to go stand outside of a fucking vegan restaurant with a sign going like these I'm not going to do that because I understand what you're doing.
Yeah, just lead by example. If you don't want to eat meat, you don't eat it. Back to Gandhi, another Eastern guy, be the change you want to see in the world. If the change you want to see in the world is everyone yelling at everybody else, that's crazy. But you can lead by example. Just do your own thing. And all I was saying with those guys is just that, like, some of those causes that we were well aware of before, they're still in the ridicule phase. People are still just making fun of vegetarians, making fun of vegans. They're not anywhere closer to the violent opposition part. And you know what I mean? So it's like, so when you're in that, as much as it sucks, like I'm the butt of a joke or whatever it is, and I'm not justifying it. You get that. I don't have to preface for you. My listeners get that. But it's just one of those things where I'm like, if you're going through that and you feel like, when is anyone ever going to just know that if you're in it, you're waist deep in it, you're also waist deep in the journey towards acceptance, which is a good thing, because a lot of other causes would love to be further along in their acceptance. Because again, nobody sidesteps that. You know what I mean? You got to go through it.
So basically the 3 steps of truth are, so
ridicule.
What's that?
Ridicule, violent opposition, and then acceptance. Yeah.
So give an example of it, like with something that you would say is a truth. Give an example of something that you would say is a truth that went through those 3 stages.
I would say the women's suffrage movement, right? When women wanted the right to vote. It's like the idea of like, oh, you want to vote? Then what do you want next to work? Like all these different things. It was like make fun of them. And they were like, no, we're serious. Like, and then of course the protests and all those things like that. Like that's the violent opposition. And then finally it's like, and now like you and I, we both were raised by women that we respect tremendously. We have women in our lives that we respect and appreciate as strong. So to you and me, like to me, it was crazy the idea that someone would think a woman was lesser. Like that's just insanity. I'm not walking around calling myself a feminist by any means.
Right.
But to me, like, I don't need to go around calling myself a feminist. I always have seen women as equal. In fact, there's women that I think the person I admired most is female. Do you know what I mean?
But I'm not going to lie to you. My wife is so smart and strong. The thought of her not reading or knowing anything would be fantastic. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, my wife is so much like the strong opposition of like anything that we were talking about there that I would be like, hey, can you tone it down a bit? No, but dude, I agree with you 100%. And that's a great example. It's like you're making fun of something that is just like, what do you? It's almost like the dumb villagers that are walking with with the what's the thing, the
torches and pitchforks,
torches and pitchforks, and they're going this, and you're going like, this is just common. Like, how could you don't agree with this,
right?
You don't agree with that women should vote and they're equal. It's like, yeah, dude, and then finally, that's really, dude. You gave me a couple of really good ones on this podcast that just make you go like, yeah, that's a really great. Well, listen, you're influenced by Eastern philosophy.
Well, dude, I always say this whenever I share this stuff. I'm just parroting smarter people. I heard it. I'm repeating it. I am not.
Yeah.
But like I said, the reason I brought it up with your episode, like, this is stuff that I've wanted to talk about on my episode. And again, talking to the wall doesn't give a fuck. I sit there going, the wall agrees with me, but you know what I mean? But the reason I'm bringing up some of this stuff with you is because, like I said, hard worker, positive dude, and this is something that I've said to a lot of strong people in my life. Yourself, well, I'm saying it to you now, but you're in that group, is just because you're positive and you've accomplished shit. There's a lot of people out there who are positive. Just because they're positive doesn't mean that it was fucking easy. Like, you still got to get up and you still got to coach yourself and you got to drag yourself through the mental mud every day. And just because the end result that everyone else gets to see is good doesn't mean that those people aren't soldiers plowing through their own shit every day. You know what I mean?
Well, I appreciate that. And like, that's why, I see things that some people don't really get to see, and in my business and being here, and like, so I'm dear friends with Pete Davidson, and the reason I bring that up is because Pete Davidson is one of the most special, nice, misunderstood people. He dates an international pop star and he gets all this shit, and he goes on Weekend Update on SNL and he'll say something to upset people. Dude, that guy is a dear friend of mine. Pete's going to be directing. Pete asked to direct my next special. And like, you talk to this guy and you hang with this guy and you're like, man, this is like just a cool dude who's just, and you just get to see like, wow, like what he goes through and you see what other people go through. And I was in the worst depression of my entire life. 1 year before I shot, I'll say this. And I remember my buddy Giannis Pappas going, you're going to be stronger when you get out of this. And dude, when I tell you, and this is to help people. I'm saying this to help people because I know a lot of people here in that know me in the States know this and that are fans. But for the people that are listening to your show, I was 90 days in a bedroom. To go to the refrigerator was a lot, Josh. Mm-hmm. To go get a glass of water was a lot. I never thought it was like a clinical fog, dude. I was just like, the thought of being able to sit and do this podcast with energy and be okay in life was so far away, and I was down, and I was hurt, and I had a hard time looking at my family because I didn't know if I'd be around, and all of these different things. I thought I was dying, all these things. And you just trust the people that you love. Don't be afraid of help. Don't be afraid to talk to somebody. Don't be afraid to try anything that could help, whether it's a medication or it's therapy once a week or eating and sleeping right and all the things that come to changing the chemicals in your brain in order to get out of that depression. But not only did I get out of it, I had some of the most amazing times after it. So anybody listening to this, dude, if you're a performer, if you're whatever you do in life, if you get there knowing that you'll be okay and knowing that you got to trust yourself and all that stuff. Because when I tell you I was in hell, so, and again, to bring this full circle about what we were talking about at the beginning is the alternative is something that I won't accept because I've been in a dark place and it's much happier and more fun to be in this place that I'm in now. Nothing is guaranteed to anybody. Right. COVID has showed us that. COVID has showed us that people can, so healthy people, you find out a healthy person or somebody that's 50 years old or 45 years old, and you're like, what, gone from COVID, what? And people like my neighbor getting sick with cancer, my mom, so all those things, man, it's just like, just live life and enjoy it, man. Go after what you want to go after, because if you don't and you're just sitting there, it's like you're going anyway.
Yeah.
you're going anyway. So go out there and fucking get all of it, man. Get all of it and enjoy it. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Thanks, buddy. This was fucking
Of
awesome.
course, my pleasure, dude. Anytime for you. And you're really great at what you do on the podcast. It sounds like a really good show and radio show host. So good luck with it. If you need anything, man, hit me up. Any advice, anything, hit me up, man. My phone is always open.
That was my chat with Virzi, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to get in touch with the podcast, contact the onemanpodcast.com. Really appreciate that, guys. There's still some collector's boxes available. So if you've seen the pictures on Instagram and things like that, and you're interested in one commemorating the 200th episode, there's still a few left. But again, you can send me an email if you're interested, or message on Instagram, whatever it is. Appreciate the love for all the people who've picked one up and all the posts and everything like that. Having an absolute great time. Appreciate you guys being here, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.